Hi, and welcome to another video by Get It Done Home Repairs. Today we have a job that we're going to actually be doing is we're going to remove this light switch and we're going to take out the box that's in the wall and we're going to close this up and sheetrock it as if it was never there before. So let me show you what tools you're going to need, and I'll explain to you how to go about taking it out without any problems. So take a look down here first. We're going to need a couple of screwdrivers, a flathead and a Phillips head. We're going to need a utility knife, a couple of pliers to actually remove the wiring and take it out of the way, something to measure how big the opening is so we can put the sheetrock back in it, a ruler to cut the line nice and straight for the sheetrock, our spackling tools, all different assortments, a sanding block to sand the sheetrock, the spackle after it dries. Now you can use regular sandpaper or you can use this mesh that they sell in the stores too, or what I like to do, if you're in a house, the sheetrock dust really gets all over everything. If you're sanding in this room, you're going to wind up with sheetrock dust in the next room. It gets all over the place. So what I normally do is I'll take a wet cloth and I'll do what's called a wet sand on the wall to get it nice and smooth. And of course, we're going to need our spackle to spackle it up. All right, so first thing we're going to do before we do anything is we want to make sure that the power is off on this switch here. This switch has already been, the light fixture which was up on the ceiling has been already disconnected, and the lights no longer exist, but the wiring is still in the ceiling and the wiring is still in here but not being used. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have the power turned off here before we start taking anything apart. Most likely it's getting its power source because it was added on. The power source is probably coming from this switch here, but when we take this out, we're going to find out where it is. So, all right, first thing we're going to do is going to shut off the power, and then we'll pull this switch out and we'll make sure that it has no power in it. I might add that you're going to be using a test light to check just to make sure that there's no power in there. This is only one example. This is one that I use because it fits in your pocket very easily. There's lots of different kinds you can use out there. All right, so, all right, let me just turn the power off, and we're going to continue. Okay, first thing we're going to do now is we did turn the power supply off, or we think the power supply is off. So now we're going to take off the screws and we're going to remove the switch. Okay, now just to make sure that we have no power in here, now if there was power in here, this light would light up, and it's not lighting up, so we know there's no power in there. All right, so now it's safe to touch this and you don't have to worry about getting a shock from it. All right, so now that we have this out, we're going to take this out so we can find out where these wires are actually coming from. We know where they're going to. So let's take out this one here. Okay, the way you take these, this is an add-on box, and the add-on box is a little different than a regular box. You see these little screws on the top here and here? What happens is inside there's a little piece of plastic that lays flat in here, and this screw here, as you tighten this screw up, the piece of plastic comes up and it holds behind the sheetrock to hold the box in the wall. So we're just going to take this and we're going to turn it counterclockwise. Just a little bit, and we're going to pop it in a little bit, because now what that does is it pushes that little plastic piece in. Same thing over here. Now sometimes these come off, sometimes they don't. Before we go any further here,
Okay.
Okay, you see the paint on the wall right here? What we're going to do is just take a utility knife or any sharp instrument and just cut the paint around just like this, just so we can pull the box away without damaging the wall. A little damage is not bad because we're going to be redoing the sheetrock anyway, but we're going to minimize the amount of damage. Okay, so now our box should come out. We're just going to pull it out just a little bit. What's holding it now is the wires are going up through the ceiling, so we're going to disconnect them. We know that the power is off, so we know we can cut these wires without getting the shock. So the box is totally disconnected, but the wiring is still coming through up on the top here. So we're just going to pull this out. And then up in the top right here, there's little plastic tabs. I don't know if you can see it in here, but there's little plastic tabs in here. We're going to take these out because that's holding the wires from pushing back up through the ceiling, or up towards the ceiling, I should say. And now we can just push these wires up. Tab on the bottom is still holding it, so we're going to release that a little bit more. If it doesn't come out easily, don't force it. You don't want to do more damage. And now we can pull these wires through here because we know we're not going to be using these. These are already disconnected up in the ceiling. So that is out. Our other wires, we're going to shorten them. And that's out as well. Now, what I was telling you about is you see that little tab? If you turn it counterclockwise, the tab goes down. You turn it clockwise and the tab comes up. And then when you tighten it, it squeezes up against the sheetrock and it holds the box tight in the wall. By turning it counterclockwise, you recess it down, and then if you turn it far enough, there's a little flat area here that it goes into, and it pushes it nice and flush. So it's almost totally flat, and it comes right out. Same thing on the bottom as well. All right, so now we know that this is up at the top. We know that this is dead up in the ceiling, so this we don't have to worry about. But we do need to remove these wires here. These wires are most likely coming down over to here. So we're going to take this, and we'll take it out and see where they go.
follow the wires to see where it goes to, and it actually connects up to this one here.
Okay, so what we have here,
A mess.
yeah, glad it's not my house. Okay, no, it's not a mess. It actually, that's what it looks like, and they all look like this. What happens is this is the power coming into this to this switch here, but this is where they brought the power up to that second switch. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this one here. We're going to unscrew the screw like that. We're going to take this wire off. Just like that. That screw, you want to make sure you screw it back in. You don't want that screw sticking out. So we're going to screw it back in. This spot here now is useless. We're not going to do anything with that because this is where the power is being connected into, right in the back here. All right, so we're just going to get this out of our way right now. I'm going to cut this off because that way you can see what I'm doing here. Now what we need to do is we need to find out where that white wire goes. That white wire is coming around over here, and we can see it's going up in the back. So we're just going to move these out of the way, just so we can see where it's going to, and it's probably going to be right underneath this wire nut right here. So now what we're going to do, take the wire nut and you turn it counterclockwise. And then you can see this is the wire. We'll take that out, and we're going to reinstall that wire nut. Make sure no other wires came out. It's nice and tight now. And we're going to put this over here. And then you can see our ground wire, which is right here. You see this ground wire here? This ground wire is actually connected up to this switch right here. So we're going to take that off, like this. Now you can see how it's looped around. They looped it around that switch. That's a good thing. That's the way it's supposed to be. Take it off like this, and we'll take this totally out. Right? And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take that wire nut right there off, like this, counterclockwise. And then we're just going to loosen these wires up so we can separate them. Like this. And now these wires are disconnected totally. And now we can pull that wire through the box and take it out. That's out. Now it's very important that this wire, this ground wire that was connected underneath that little wire nut, this wire nut, we're not going to use any longer, but it's very important that you put this ground wire back onto this switch right here. And the way you do that, it tightens it clockwise, so you want to make sure you have a loop in the end, just like this, and then this goes around like that. And then you make sure you tighten it. When you're tightening this, it should be tightening that loop that we just put around it. See how it's tightening this direction? And it pulls that tighter. You want to make sure it's underneath that little bent up tab right there. And the other end is over past that tab right there. Tighten it down. That's it, nice and tight. So now everything that ran up to this other switch, except this wire here, we'll deal with this in a second. Everything that we need to remove in here is now removed. So we're going to push our wires back inside. We're going to take our first switch, a second switch we took off, and we're going to reattach it. Now remember, you're only screwing this into a plastic box, so you don't want to over tighten it and strip it out. So you want to catch both screws, top and bottom, before you tighten anything up. I'm going to snug them in. Okay. Now, if by chance you try to tighten that screw, and that screw turns and doesn't tighten up, they do sell longer screws that you can pick up in the big box store, so you can make the screw a little bit longer, and it'll catch further back inside the box itself. All right, these wires, we're going to take them now, we're going to push them back up in here, and again, we're going to catch it very loosely, top and bottom, just by a couple of threads. Same thing on the bottom one. Now the hole that screw goes through, you can see it's slotted and it moves back and forth a little bit. I always try to put it right in the center of it, because that way if you have to move it one way or the other, you can do it. Alright, so that's all set. Now these wires here, these wires are useless. We don't need these, because they, like I said, they go up into a fixture that no longer exists. So these wires can be cut off, and we don't have to worry about taking these out of the wall, because they actually run up into the attic area, and there's no power source to them any longer. So that's it. This is now finished. Now we're gonna put the sheetrock over this hole. So when we put the sheetrock on here, it's gonna be like there was nothing that was ever there. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna measure how big this opening is right here, and then we're gonna take this onto a piece of sheetrock, and we're gonna cut the sheetrock that size. So we have 2 1/4 inches wide. And it's about 3 3/4 inches high. So we're going to cut the sheetrock this size, but we are going to cut the patch a little bit bigger. We want to have the sheetrock, the paper part of the sheetrock is going to cover over the top right here. So, all right, let's go out in the garage, and I'm going to show you how to cut it, and then we'll continue out there. Okay, so now we have our sheetrock here, and now you remember the opening inside was only 2 1/4 inch, the hole in the center of it. We're going to actually make it so we have an inch further on this side. All the way around, we want to have an extra inch of space. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to cut this a little bit bigger, and then we're going to cut the sheetrock inside. So let's mark it like this, and we're just going to cut the sheetrock a little bit. We're going to be a little careful here because we don't want to cut through and damage what's underneath. So we're just going to go nice and easy, but you don't cut yourself. And then now you can see it's cut through over here. Now we just take this and just push it up like this. And then we take a utility knife and just cut along the back. And now we have our patch. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go inside and we're going to make those measurements one more time. Remember, inside here it was 2 1/4 inches wide by 3 1/2 inches high. So we're just going to make those marks on here where the actual opening is going to be. and then we'll continue from there. So let me just do that. Okay, so now, obviously this is the part that's going to be showing on the wall. We're going to come on the back over here and we're going to measure it. Remember, it was 2 1/4 by about 3 5/8. So we marked it off here exactly where the cutout is going to be. And now what we're going to do is going to come in here and we're going to scribe that area and we're going to cut it with the utility knife. Now we're going to cut a little bit through here and we're going to break off this part here. So let me show you what we're going to do. We're just going to come in here like this and we're going to cut here. Same thing here. We're just going to cut just a little bit deeper here. We don't want to cut too far. We're just going to cut a little bit into it like this. And then we're going to take this and just snap it down, being careful not to damage the paper on this side here. But now we're going to take the pieces out just like this. See, so we still have the outside piece of paper on there like that. Now we're going to do the same thing over here. And now that is our patch for the wall. So let's go back inside and we'll continue in there. Okay, so this is what the patch is going to look like after you cut it. The paper is on the other side, and instead of having to put the tape around here, this paper is actually the tape. It's going to fit just like this over in the hole. So now before we do anything, we're going to take some spackle and we're going to put a lot of spackle here all the way around on the other sides, especially in here, because we want this to adhere to this. So we're going to put some spackle on here and then we'll put it back together. I know what you're saying, it's a lot of spackle, but it comes right out. I'll show you what I'm going to do. Okay, so this is ready to go in, but now I'm going to put a little spackle up here.
Hey,
like that.
that thing is really beautiful, Mike. Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, so now we're going to take our patch, put our patch into the hole. The spackle is now going to be sticking to the other spackle. We're going to push it in just like that. What I always do is hold the one side and just smooth it out. You want to make sure that you have all of your air bubbles are out from underneath here. So work from the center to the end. Just like that. Same thing here. And that's our patch on the wall. Now we're going to let this dry just a little bit. Once it dries a little bit, then we're going to come back and we're going to put a coat of spackle over the top here. But we're going to let this dry for a little bit first, and then we'll come back.
Hold on, watch this.
Okay. Now after this is dried thoroughly here, we don't have to sand it because we did a nice job with the spackle knife before. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fill it in all around here to make the new piece that we put on here even with the rest of the wall. So we're going to just come in here first, and we're just going to put a light coat on like this. Remember, whenever you're doing spackling, it's always good to use 1 or 2 light coats, then try to do it with one heavy coat. One heavy coat is not going to do it. So you put a light coat on, you let it dry, and you would sand it very lightly, and then you would continue with it. We just want to make sure we cover everything. And now we're going to take a bigger spackle knife and we're going to flatten it all out so we have it fairly straight across. Okay, so now you want to smooth it out. It's not going to be absolutely perfect right now. You're going to do it in 2 or 3 different coats. So we put a very thin coat on to cover everything up, to kind of float everything together. Now what we're going to do is, if this is going to thoroughly dry, once it dries, we'll come in here with either a sanding block, which is something like this, with sandpaper on it, so that you can smooth it down, or we're going to come in here with a wet cloth, and we're going to wipe it down with a cloth to get it smoother. So for today, we're pretty much done until the spackle dries, but that's what we're going to do. Sand it down with the sanding block, and then 1 more coat of spackle over it, and then depending on what it looks like after that, we may have to put a 3rd coat on. But that's it. That's how you remove a switch, and that's how you would actually repair a hole in the wall so that it blends in with the rest of it. All right, so once it's all finished, I'll show you what it looks like when it's done, but for today, we're done until it dries, and that's it. All right, on to the next one. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. All right, now that our spackle has dried up on here, I can see it's pretty good. So this is the 2nd coat. So we're just going to do a real finish with the sandpaper. The previous coat we did with the washcloth to actually get it fairly smooth. But now we're just gonna finish it off with the sandpaper, and then this job will be done, and that's it. It'll be like it was never even there before. All right. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.